Shalom, welcome back to the Sequential Zohar series. Today we are in Bereshit A, chapter 16. Let us make man, part 2. And this chapter asks one of the most honest questions a spiritual person can ask. If the Creator already knew that human beings would fall, why create us in the first place? Why build a soul that can choose badly? Why make a world where there is light but also darkness? Why not just make us perfect, obedient, clean, and finished from the beginning? That sounds simple. It even sounds kind. But the Zohar is going to take us deeper than simple. In this passage, Rabbi Shimon is speaking with the friends, his students, and they are looking at the verse in Genesis. Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. The question is, who is the us in that sentence? The Zohar brings the teaching that the angels are involved in the conversation. The ministering angels can see where humanity is going. They can see the future weakness of Adam. They can see sin. They can see the fall. So Rabbi Shimon asks, if the angels already knew man would sin, why did they support making man at all? Then the chapter brings in Aza and Azael, two angels who object. They basically say, why create human beings when you already know they will fail? And that is not a small question. It is the voice of accusation. It is the voice that says, if someone is going to make mistakes, maybe they should never have been given the chance. But the Shechinah answers them with a warning. You are judging man for a weakness, but you yourselves will fall through the very thing you are accusing. In other words, judgment is easy from a distance. It is easy to look at another person's struggle and say, I would never do that. It is easy to look at Adam or Eve or humanity and say, how could they fall? But the Zohar says, be careful. The place where you judge most harshly might be the place where you have not yet been tested. This is where the teaching becomes very human. Aza and Azael are not just ancient angelic beings in a story. They represent the part of us that wants to stand above life and criticize it. That part of us says people should not be so weak. People should know better. People should not need second chances. And sometimes we even speak to ourselves that way. I should not have failed. I should not have reacted like that. I should not still be struggling with this. I should have fixed this years ago. But the Zohar does not begin with shame. It begins with the fact that repentance was prepared. That is the key. The Creator did not create humanity and then get surprised by human failure. The possibility of return was built into the world from the beginning. Before the fall, there was already a path back. Before the mistake, there was already repair. Before the darkness, there was already light waiting to be revealed through choice. This is not a permission slip to keep repeating the same damage. It is not an excuse to be careless. It is something much more powerful. It means your worst moment is not the final definition of who you are. The Zohar says that for men there is atonement, there is teshuvah, there is return. The angels in the story fall through accusation, but the human being is given the ability to fall and rise. And that ability is not a weakness. It is part of the design. Then the friends ask the next question. And it is the question many of us would ask. If repentance is needed because evil exists, why create evil at all? Why create a good inclination and an evil inclination? Why create light and darkness? Why not remove the darkness and spare everyone the pain? Rabbi Shimon answers that if there were no good and evil, no light and darkness, then there would be no commandments and no transgressions. There would be no real choice. There would be no reward for righteousness, no consequence for wrongdoing, and no meaningful movement of the soul. A person would not become good. A person would only be programmed. That is a huge difference. The Zohar is telling us that the Creator was not trying to manufacture perfect robots. The Creator was creating beings who could participate in their own elevation. We are not only shaped from above, we are invited to choose from within. That is why the Torah says, I have set before you life and good, death and evil. The setting before us matters. Life is not forced into our hands. Good is not forced into our hands. It is placed before us. And the dignity of the human soul is that we can choose. Now, this is important. When the Zohar speaks about light and darkness, and male and female principles, it is speaking in a symbolic language. This is not a lesson about blaming women. It is not a lesson about reducing anyone to darkness. Kabbalah is talking about forces, polarities, coverings, revealings, hiddenness, and manifestation. So when we hear this chapter, we have to listen for the inner movement. There is the part of us that shines, and there is the part of us that hides. There is the part of us that knows what is right, and there is the part that pulls us into reaction. There is the part that wants to serve, and the part that wants to control. The work is not to pretend darkness is not there. The work is to choose how we respond to it. That is free will, not the fantasy that we never feel anger, jealousy, desire, fear, pride, or resentment. Free will is the sacred pause after the feeling arrives. It is the moment between impulse and action. It is the breath where we say, I see the darkness, but I do not have to become it. I see the urge, but I do not have to obey it. I see the old pattern, but I do not have to repeat it. That is where the image of God becomes active in a human being. Not when we are never tested. When we are tested and we choose life. Then Rabbi Shimon takes the teaching even higher. He says that the Torah was created for the sake of men. The Torah contains reward for the righteous and consequences for the sinful. Without a human being who contains both light and darkness, the Torah would not be fully revealed in the world. This is a beautiful idea. Torah is not only a book sitting outside us. Torah becomes visible through the choices of human beings. When someone chooses patience instead of anger, Torah is being dressed in life. When someone chooses honesty instead of manipulation, Torah is being dressed in life. When someone chooses repair instead of pride, Torah is being dressed in life. The world was not created to remain empty, formless, or unused. It was created to be inhabited. And spiritually, to inhabit the world means more than just living here. It means filling the world with conscious choices. It means turning ordinary moments into vessels for holiness. It means making the invisible light of Torah visible through action. Then the Zohar gives one of the most tender images in the chapter. It says the Torah of Bria, the world of creation, is like the clothing of the Shechinah. If man had not been created, the Shechinah would be without garments, like someone poor who has no covering. That image is intense. It means that our actions do not stay private in the way we imagine. When we sin, when we act from separation, when we harm, when we choose the lower impulse, the Zohar says it is as if we strip the Shechinah of her garments. We make holiness less visible in the world. But the opposite is also true. When we perform the precepts, when we act with love, restraint, integrity, and awareness, it is as if we clothe the Shechinah. We give holiness a garment. We make the divine presence easier to see, easier to feel, easier to recognize. This changes the way we look at small actions. A kind word is not small. A moment of restraint is not small. An apology is not small. A mitzvah done with sincerity is not small. A choice to not answer cruelty with cruelty is not small. According to this chapter, these choices are garments for the Shechinah. They cover what exile has exposed. They restore dignity to the presence of holiness in the world. Then the Zohar ends with another symbol, black and white in the Torah. Darkness is the black ink. Light is the white parchment. And here is the beauty. You cannot read a Torah scroll with only white parchment. And you cannot read it with only black ink. Meaning appears through the relationship between them. The letters stand out because of the space. The space receives the letters. Black and white together create revelation. That is such a powerful way to understand our lives. We often want a life made only of light, only clarity, only peace, only success, only spiritual confidence. But the letters of our soul are often written through contrast. We discover patience because impatience was real. We discover forgiveness because hurt was real. We discover humility because pride was real. We discover faith because uncertainty was real. We discover return because wandering was real. The point is not to worship darkness. The point is to use the encounter with darkness to reveal the letters of light. So, what do we do with this chapter today? First, stop using your fall as proof that you should never have been created. That is the voice of accusation. The Zohar answers that voice with teshuvah. You were created with the possibility of return. Second, stop judging other people from a height you have not earned. The angels who accuse men are shown that accusation itself can become a fall. Compassion is not weakness, it is spiritual intelligence. Third, do not ask for a life with no choice. Ask for the strength to choose well. Every day places life and good, death and evil in front of us in small forms. The phone call, the comment, the temptation, the resentment, the opportunity to help, the chance to repair, the pause before reacting. That is where this chapter lives, not only in heaven, not only among angels, not only in ancient language, it lives in the next decision. Fourth, remember that your actions clothe something holy. When you choose well, the world becomes a little less spiritually naked. The Shechinah receives a garment. The divine presence becomes more visible through you. And fifth, look again at your darkness. Do not excuse it. Do not deny it. Do not let it rule you. But also, do not believe it is useless. The black ink has a place when it becomes a letter. The darkness has a place when it is transformed into wisdom, humility, compassion, and return. This is the deep mercy of "Let us make man." The human being is not created because he will never fall. The human being is created because he can choose, repair, return, and reveal light from inside the place where darkness appeared. That is our greatness. Not perfection, return. Not never being tested, choosing life while being tested. Not pretending we are angels, becoming human in the deepest, holiest sense. So as we close, take one area of your life where you have been speaking to yourself with accusation. One place where you keep saying, "I should have been better." And instead of accusation, bring teshuvah. Ask, what is the next on a step back toward the light? Not the grand performance, not the dramatic promise, just the next on a step. That step is a garment. That step is a letter. That step is the soul choosing life. And that is why the Creator made man. Because in this teaching, the soul is not measured by never failing. It is measured by the courage to return with awareness again today. Shalom.